Tombe, Chor.
All right, Spunky.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for all the fun.
Hey, have a good one.
I can continue on. I'll just come back in. Leave the list here.
Okay. Good luck.
All right.
See ya.
I'll need it. I'll bet.
Hello, is anybody home? There they are. Can y'all hear me? Hello? Anybody out there? Oh, only the host can see you, the host. Okay, I got it.
Hey,
How the hell y'all doing?
Good. What are you up to, brother?
Not a lot. Just enjoying life. Had a lovely Mother's Day with my beautiful bride yesterday.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
How you guys?
Okay. We're good. We just finished all the chores and got all the animals locked down so we could have a nice show here tonight. So,
Cool.
all right. You ready to go live?
I'm ready.
All right, man. Cool.
Had to do that tutorial getting in, but at least it was good because now I know how to get my X account on, my YouTube account on. I did
All right.
one other account. I mean, what's that freaky one for young people? TikTok.
Oh, TikTok. Yeah, I stay off on TikTok.
Yeah.
It's too busy for me over there. I don't want to capture the attention of people that can only keep their attention for 15 seconds at a time.
Right.
Let's
That's
go for this.
that's our society, though, right?
That's exactly
The
right.
sound bite.
Yeah.
Or the sound bite.
I think back that camera off a little bit. That might be good right there. Okay. See, my freaking keyboard doesn't crap out of me tonight. Glad I got 2 keyboards. I got an extra keyboard. Okay. Honey, you got anything else here?
No, I'm good.
All right. I think it's gonna mute the mics when we go. Your sound's good. You got a blurry spot on your right from the camera. No, your right.
Yeah, it's the camera.
Okay. I don't know if it's the screen or what it is, but
It might be that. Oh shit! Now I lost it altogether. Where the fuck did it go?
I can see you. It's just like blurry. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I can.
Take a screenshot of it and show him.
No, I know what you're talking about because I can see it.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
So I'm wondering if it's.
Looks like government quality broadcasting equipment.
Right. Oh,
Jeez.
When I had an interview with the state with the federal parks, state parks
yeah.
commission,
Yeah.
dude, they had the worst software, the worst internet connection, the worst camera, the worst fucking metallic scratchy microphone. And I got my boom here, and they're like, I think he's on the podcast. I think he's one of the influencers. Hey, what's the mic for, Mr. Daniel? I'm like, it's how I talk on my computer. I actually invested in a microphone so people can hear me. Oh, and they're on some fucking phone or something. It was hilarious.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know what it's in the camera itself.
It is.
It looks like it's on the inside of the either the sensor or the inside of the lens or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
it's.
That's fine.
I just had my monitor replaced,
Hmm.
and so I'm guessing it's related to that. I'll just
All right.
go over here.
You're good. Perfect. You're good.
When I want to be, a concealed guest, I'll come over to this side.
For sure, me.
Right.
This guest is not wished for his identity to be.
Right. So if you ask me a question and I slide over, you can feel free to say that.
Okay,
Right.
I will.
Just add a little humor to the mix.
All right, cool. Let's go. I think I have it's just 5 minutes for the countdown, but it's going to be at two minutes or so. So, all right, 2 or 3. Here we go.
What do you say when there are no words? Feel a song that's never been heard. How do you know when you hear the call? What do you do when you've done it all? Cannonball. 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 It's not what you do, it's how you do. Be anything you want to be. It's not what you got, it's how you use it. You be you and I'll be me. It's just a matter of style. You can't fake it. Mile after mile, feeling free. If you got the soul, you can make it. Move them out. Let them roll from sea to shining sea. What do you do with the mountains there? How do you answer the challenging day? And when your back's against the wall, what do you do when you've done it all? Cannonball, cannonball. It's not what you do, it's how you do. Be anything you want to be. It's not what you got, it's how you do. You be you and I'll be me. It's just a matter of time. You can't fake it. Mile after mile, feeling free. If you got the soul, you can make it. Move 'em out. Let 'em roll from sea to shining sea.
Headquarters, we are still in pursuit of the Black Lamborghini. Car 42, you've been in pursuit for 2 hours. Another 5 minutes and you'll be in Arizona. Yeah, and we're gonna stay in pursuit until we catch him. It didn't take us that long to catch Dillinger.
And here we are. Okay, everyone, welcome back. Well, yeah, thank you, Zaire, for letting me know there, man. Another edition of the Phoenix Enigma Show, talking about fascism today. We had a fascism show the other day. The topic is kind of interesting to me. We're gonna get into it today as it gets into politics as well. And yeah, Zaire, it looks like on my Rumble channel, I don't know, it must have notified everybody because I'm getting people coming in here, but it's I have another account. I think I messed up when I first set it up years and years ago, and I don't know why it grabbed that account. I didn't do that, but anyway, here we are. People will find us. If not, they'll find this.
Can I ask you a question? Because I want to make sure I'm on the right show here. Did you say, did you say fashion or fascism?
We're talking about both. We're talking about.
I mean, if you want to talk about fascism, you're going to have to talk to your lovely wife there. I don't know nothing about it. I know nothing about it.
I am hardly a fashionista.
Tonight is Feather Bolos, specifically in the burlesque community. I thought you were in on that.
Feather boa night.
Feather Bow, you were signed up for that tonight.
Feather
Brian?
Bolay in the burlesque
Council.
community. Funny.
Fascism.
All right.
We did a pretty in-depth expose the other night into fascism, and I learned a lot.
I heard it.
Yeah, I really, I'm going to pin this up here. I really did learn a lot there. I always thought it, you hear fascism thrown around, fascism, fascist, you fascist. Antifa's calling people fascist all the time.
Right.
And it comes out, it is an economic term.
It is. Yeah, it's fascism, like communism, is and capitalism. They are economic systems, right? And that's why it's always good to break this stuff down. Because when you talk about, if you talk about Nazism, you're talking about a religion, you're talking about an ideology that encompasses or includes fascism as an economic system. And
That's right.
so, fascism is no different from capitalism or communism in that sense. And they all have to have some type of political organization. I wholeheartedly disagree with the guys on your show this past weekend. One of them said the U.S. Constitution is fascist. That's not true. It's not. And I think fascism has another component that people need to understand, is that most people who are proponents of fascism believe that, you know, the state, and he kept, your guest kept saying state with a capital S, right? Why with a capital S? You know, it's a proper name. It's a person, it's a thing, it's a living being, it's an entity.
It's a corporate entity.
And an entity per se, right? You know, and so your friend was talking about, you know, everybody has their place, right? You got to do a good job doing what you do. And the reason for that is if you don't do a good job doing what it is you do, you know, then the corpus as a whole, the corpus of the state suffers. You're kind of like a cancer, right? Your leg doesn't work or your gallbladder doesn't work, and you got to do surgery and extricate the problem from the system, right? But fascism, you know, in that collectivist sense is really no different than any other collectivist types. Political ideologies.
I was very interested to learn that fascism was a collectivist system. I'd always assumed, or I learned that fascism was a right-wing, violent political system used to subjugate other people. I mean, that's what you're taught in, you know, if you're a victim of the public education system in America.
That's Nazism.
Yes, that's Nazism.
That's
correct.
Nazism.
It is, but I was also shocked to learn that it is surprised to learn that it is a collective system. It is based on the collectivity. And I guess why wouldn't it be? Because the symbol is a bunch of sticks of wood bundled together and tied around the bundle of wood with the axe head on it.
Right.
It is a collectivist mentality.
It is.
And before we go further, I will admit, I'm not sold on fascism at all. I don't know if it's you know, I mean, I don't even know how it would even operate today.
Right. It operates in the United States today.
It operates well. I mean, I've always said, you know, when like Trump consolidated all the business after 70% of small business died during 2021, during COVID, during the lockdown, right? 2020.
Yeah.
We had all that business died. It all got funneled into Amazon, Walmart, Target, Tyson, Nabisco. There's a number of Quaker, a number of companies that maintain the manufacturing, distribution, allocation, retail of all the goods and products in the country, kind of took over like everything that was lost in the private sector.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, that's fascism. That's a collaboration between industry and state.
That's corporatism. That's not really fascism. You know what fascism as an economic ideology is, and that's why you know you're the people you had on your show were talking much about the state, right? And so you have, you know, communism is the collective ownership of the means of production and distribution, right? As collective as represented by the state, right? And this turns out that the Soviet Union, their political component to their state was a dictatorship. It was a one-party system, right? And I would argue that that's what the United States has become. But fascism then differed from communism in that, you know, it has the same end, right? But it allows for the private ownership of the means of production and distribution. But those means of production and distribution must first meet the ends of the state, right?
Yes.
The state is the most important. The collective well-being is the most important. And so Volkswagen was allowed to exist and sell Volkswagens and profit from the sale of Volkswagens in Germany, so long as they were allowed, so long as they met the needs of the state, right? So long as they made those cute little desert buggies for Rommel to go romp around in northern Africa with.
Yeah.
And they're still pretty cool because they're actually good little, you know, off-road buggies.
I had a 72 Baja and it had a customized transaxle. The first and second gear were geared down one notch and the third and fourth were geared up. So that, and the person had it custom made like that because he lived in the back hills of Arizona. Yet he needed to go to town. He drove 70 miles when he got to the highway.
Right.
So it gave him more torque in the sand and in the dirt. But then when he had to rev it up in second gear, to get into third. But once you did, you could do about 70 miles an hour in that thing. And it was geared to do 70 miles. It was scary as hell because it didn't weigh nothing on the road, you know.
It's
But,
interesting you say that. My old Harley was a 95 FXSB lowrider, and I geared my first 2 gears down and my third and fourth up as well. It was a 4-speed.
All right.
And so I had the first 2 geared down because we would do a lot of off-roading.
Yeah.
On the Harley to old mining towns and stuff like that. And so, but yeah. So fascism is designed to meet the ends of the state and the collective whole.
When I did a consolidation here on Mussolini's 27-page doctrine, it gave me 9 bullet points here, and 7. And the second one, it summed it up. Totalitarian state. The state is all-encompassing with everything within the state, nothing outside the state, nothing against the state. It shapes every aspect of life, political, social, economic, spiritual, demanding total loyalty. That's as Mussolini defined fascism within his document.
You're a part of the state. You're a cell. You're a cell within this corpus. And that's the way a lot of them talked about it, as being an organic entity. In that
spiritual too.
Yeah. But, I don't think, fascism per se has to be associated with a totalitarian system like both Adolf Hitler and Benito Mussolini had. If you look at China, China is not a communist country, right? China has incorporated a lot of what we would call capitalism into their system. But what do those capitalists have to do? They have to first meet the needs of the state. And so that's what I call fascism, right? An economic system where the people are allowed to own the means of production and distribution. And by that, I mean, you can own the factories, you can own the coffee shops, you can own the restaurants. But if if you're given a mission to fulfill on behalf of the state, you must fulfill that first, before and above all else. You must achieve the goals of the state. And in fact, I did a video today. I didn't post it, but it talks about, for example, the Labor Department. What is the United States? We're not a capitalistic country. You cannot say we are a capitalistic country. Yes, I can go buy a factory and make widgets, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what does that entail? What does that entail, right?
Licensing.
We've got the Department of Labor, right? That, which is why I'm never going to go buy a factory.
You're talking to a guy who used to own 18 gas stations.
Yeah.
You have Department of Labor. You have the Weights and Measures. You have Department of Air Quality, Department of Environmental Quality, Department of Water Quality. Right. You have the Tobacco and Alcohol Licensing Board for the city and the state.
Right.
You have your permit to operate. You have your special tax permit if you're within the city with it. It goes on and on. It doesn't end there.
And so do you see what I'm saying now when I say that you're allowed to own the means of production and distribution privately, so long as you first attain the needs of the state, right? What happens if you didn't attain all those needs of the state, the collective well-being, the well-being of the collective whole? That's what those are, right?
Yeah.
And so, when you look at the United States in the 20th century, we were not insulated from the rest of the world, right? And all of these very big collectivist socialist systems emerged in the 20th century: communism, fascism, right? We got the USSR and Russia and the Bolshevik Revolution, 1917. Results in the USSR and its communist totalitarian system. And then we have, the Chinese Revolution. When was that? 27? And that resulted in the imposition of this large centralized communist totalitarian system. We get the rise of Adolf Hitler in Germany. And then we have Italy with Benito Mussolini. And you get these very heavily centralized and large fascistic economic systems. Well, what impact did that have on the United States, right? It had a huge impact on the United States.
Well, we ended up going to war with a bunch of people in order to gain the upper hand economically and maintain economic dominance of trade all over the planet.
Well, that's why
You know?
we got involved in World War One, right?
Sure,
Germany-
absolutely.
Yeah, Germany coming into the late 1800s they were just really a loose alliance of Germanic principalities, right? And then they created what's known as the Zollverein, which was their version of the U.S. Constitution.
Mhm.
It was more like a free trade agreement, and so it unified all of these loose knit principalities into one Germanic state, and they industrialized very, very rapidly. Right? They became
Mhm.
very powerful, and then where they start fucking around, right? Latin America. Well, hey, you can't mess around in Latin America because that belongs to the United States.
Yeah, it's
So
too close.
they're in Chile trying to get copper,
Argentina, Mexico.
copper and bat shit, right? Because you get all the birds come onto the coast of South America down there, and the climate is so steep, all the bats and the birds are shitting all over the cliffs, and that's very, very rich in nitrates, and so Germany was very interested in that because what can you do with nitrates?
You make gunpowder,
And what?
fertilizer.
You can grow food and you can
Fertilizer.
blow people up.
That's right.
One is a giver of life and the other is the taketh away. It's sort of like the whole duality of life. Nitrates, you can kill with them or you can feed populations with them.
Yeah.
And
To go back a second, I remember reading literally half a lifetime time ago. I was at a Borders or books up near Deer Valley waiting, and I had an economics magazine, and I picked it up, and it had a picture of China, and it said the new hybrid capitalist communist nations, the new world order's next model for global economics.
right.
Something to that. I'm paraphrasing, but obviously, but it's like 20. I said I read 23 pages of this in this magazine, and you're right. China figured out, yes, we want to control everything, but we don't want to do all the work. So they have these families. Families will come forward and they'll all right, you open up a shoe factory, and they allow that family to open up the shoe factory in there, and they control the means and the distribution, and they tell them how many to make, how many not to make. They allow them X amount of profit, and then if they piss off the regime, they get literally axed or fired or cut out, and they just put a new person in there. So they use that as leverage.
They get Hillary Clinton.
That's right.
Right.
And that's kind of how China operates.
Mhm.
And
So
the state, but how can you, when you have, like, again, a totalitarian state is one of the primary definitions of fascist. And if it's all nothing outside the state, everything within the state, nothing against the state, how do you enforce that if it's not with violence at the end of a gun? How do you get everyone to commonly come together? This is where fascism starts to intrinsically take on a negative component, I think.
Well, and it does. And if you look at the United States, tell the Department of Labor to go fuck off and keep running your business. What's going to happen? You're going to have guys with guns show up and they're going to shut your business down, right? So, all of these systems of government that rely on some central authority or power to dictate the goods of society and how you will operate to achieve the goods of society, they have to be authoritarian to one level or not. I mean, the United States has been good about hiding our inherent authoritarianism, right?
Yeah.
But all states theoretically are they've got the primary component of any state is what we call a repressive state apparatus, right? Those are the organizations that heap violence upon society to keep society in line, right? So the United States has a repressive apparatus,
Just like the homeless.
the FBI, the national security agencies, the CIA, the military, those are all the repressive state apparatus, right? And so, they have the ability to keep society in check through the use of force. And so, all societies, though, also try to create what's known as an ideological state apparatus. And that's generally how we have always reproduced as the United States. Our schools, our churches, right, our families, all of these institutions serve as the ideological state apparatus. And that's, by the way, why the left wants to control them so badly. And so in a fascistic system or any totalitarian or authoritarian system, they always grab control of these ideological state apparatuses so that they can reproduce the younger children into their ideal type of system. That's
and I don't. You're spot on, but I'll give you an example that I don't think a lot of people have caught on to yet. I mean, certain people within certain groups on the internet get it.
Mm-hmm.
My group gets it, who watches my channel. But P. Diddy was about controlling the narrative for the youth,
right,
for the any dark skinned, the minorities, but increasingly so into white America.
Mm-hmm.
If they could control that youth going into the future, they could control the vote.
Right.
And that's why P. Diddy was blackmailing people. That's why he has his freak off parties. It was another control mechanism, just like Epstein. And people don't understand the bigger play there. They think it was just to, make some money and blackmail people. No, it was to control Beyonce. It was to control all those superstars that got up there. The Super Bowl,
right,
J-Lo. I mean, these are the biggest names in acting and entertaining, which influences the largest. Hollywood can influence more people with a movie than any political PAC can with $30 million.
Well, that's why the CIA has long been involved in Hollywood, right?
CIA, it used to be a secret, but it's not anymore. They have people that are CIA liaisons that work with production companies,
right? And
they say, listen, and here's how they do it. Because I knew a guy who used to work with them over in Hollywood, Rob. He said, well, what they do, Corey, they'd come in and they'd say, listen, you're going to talk about some things. We'll give you some meat. We'll give you some meat to put into your movie, right? And then we'll tell you some cool stuff, and we'll let you put some drops in there. But we want you to spin it this way for us. And we want you to avoid talking about Jeffrey Epstein and child trafficking or tax funding, human trafficking coming across the border. Stay out of that stuff. And we will help you out, and maybe fund some of the stuff for you. And we give you some tanks and some helicopters and shit too. Mm-hmm. That's what the Army and the Marine Corps is known for, and the Navy. They will give these production companies all these warships if they just avoid and spin the narrative and the story in a certain directions, which basically makes it an extension of the propaganda.
Right. Whatever they can do to increase, enrollment in the military services is something that's going to, they're going to want to do. But, that's why, if you look at, whenever you look at fascism and if you look at the United States today, I contend that the United States is a fascist country, right? We're not a fascist totalitarian nation yet, right? I think our national security apparatus is trying to get us there by manipulating our elections, because if you look at the examples I use as partisan politicians, right? Lisa Murkowski in Alaska, she's a Republican, and you guys down there in Arizona have Mark Kelly, right? He's a Democrat.
He's an astronaut.
What's the difference between these two besides their gender, and their geographical location? Absolutely nothing, right? They're both in different. They claim to be in different parties, but really the difference between, and that's why it's really become known as the Uniparty.
Yeah,
right. And
right.
So that's this whole attack on Donald Trump and this whole attack on MAGA that they've been waging is an effort to keep this uniparty system of government alive because that's the lifeblood, to their maintaining their fascist system, right? And so if you look at, what happened in the United States in the 20th century, we have 15 cabinet level departments, right?
Mhm.
Hundreds of agencies under each one of those departments. 9 of those 15 departments were created in the 20th century, right?
Yeah.
One of them was created early in the 21st century as a result of the cabinet level departments in the 20th century fucking with people and making them
Isn't
enemy.
is the newest Homeland Security?
Yeah,
I remember when that one came about, I was like, that sounds a little
right.
sounds a little
Orwellian,
not to me.
A little Orwellian, right? And
a
so
little bit.
yeah, and so the United States federal government, to say the least, has had a lot of mission creep, right? They keep talking about, and this is what I really think's happening. You get the uniparty, and this is referencing back to that article you read, right? The new ideal political system to emerge, this Chinese variant of fascism, right? They won't call it fascism. Why won't they call it fascism? Well,
I think they called it a capitalistic communistic hybrid.
right, which is
Of sorts.
fascism,
Which is fascism.
right?
Okay, yeah.
But American media won't call it fascism because fascism is associated with Adolf Hitler,
That's right.
right? And so
That's
that's
right.
why they sort of have to sort of change language and do all of this stuff. But the United States government has had this substantial mission creep that took place during the 20th century, primarily initiated by FDR, who really was America's first dictator, right? Having
Yes.
four
Yes, he
terms.
was.
America, after FDR said no more, we amended our constitution so they can only serve 2 terms. A lot of pro-Trump people are regretting that decision now, but I'm
Mhm.
not. I'm not. I think 2 terms is enough. I think we need
It's
to
fine.
do the
Yeah.
same damn thing to Congress is what we need to do. But we had this tremendous, very heavily centralized growth in the federal government bureaucracy that basically usurped all of these state powers. And now you have to meet the ends of the state, right? The goals of the state that they have laid out, as the good of the whole, the good of the nation. And what I really hate about, collectivist society the most?
God, there's so many things. You have no choice. You have to be involved in it. That's the direction you're going to go, whether you want to or not, because everyone else is going there.
Well, that's something to hate for sure. but what I mean, what I hate the most is, when these people say for the good of the whole, right?
Mhm.
What does that mean about you if you don't agree with a whole?
Well, it means they got to cut off the arm
Right.
for the good of the whole.
Yeah, and you become a cancer on society. Right?
Right.
And,
Right.
but it doesn't have to be a totalitarian state to fit that mold, right? I mean,
Sure.
let's go back to COVID. You remember Italy during COVID? What?
Not specifically. I remember Europe was, some countries bent the knee more than others. Some totally went insane,
Well,
total lockdown, and some said, "Screw it, you can do whatever you want."
you know what Italy did?
Hmm.
They sent all the old people home and said, "Sorry, we don't have the resources to tend to you." And what did that do to Italy with respect to their social welfare systems, their retirement systems?
I would imagine you had more people die off
Yeah,
if they were vaccinated
Yeah.
or had the coof. They died off, and then it eased up on the economic burdens of their elderly geriatric welfare state.
right. It was for the good of the whole.
Yes,
Right.
same thing in America.
We're not
When
We're not going to treat you. It's for the good of the whole. If you get better, you get better. You're stronger for it.
well, what do you call it when Cuomo takes people that are positive with COVID and puts them in elderly retirement homes?
Yeah, I call it murder.
It's murder.
murder. But I would,
Gavin Newsom did the same thing, and the governor up there in Washington or the mayor of Seattle, one of them guys did the exact same thing as well, I believe.
yeah, and I think Cuomo is going to be looking at some serious, from what I understand, legal ramifications for doing what he did.
Is that up on the board?
It's on the,
Like, are they looking at?
yeah. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and so to do that, I mean, that's how is that any different? I mean, for example, let's say you have HIV, you conceal it from your partner, you have sex with your partner gets HIV, right?
Mhm.
They'll throw you in jail for that, right?
Not in California, though.
Well, not the. I think you can do just about anything in California, but be a conservative.
Newsom passed that law during the middle of COVID, I believe. He passed that law,
That's
if
crazy.
I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so you can knowingly give someone HIV and not have any legal consequences there.
Yeah, that's
It was insane.
yeah, that's why people need to just stay away from California as much as possible. But it's really no different than what Newsom did in New York. I mean, you take COVID positive patients, and the elderly are more subject to a higher risk of death with COVID, and then you dump them all in your high risk elderly populations. I don't know how that's any different than murder. I'd have to look at the New York Penal Code.
Well, I think a lot of Americans are hoping that Trump looks at it. There's a lot of rumors about Fauci right now. I mean, it's been my contention since the beginning of COVID, that COVID was a biological weapon designed to thin out the herd, to kill off the most vulnerable and the elderly, which consume the most. 63, 64, 65% of the federal budget is Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security.
Right.
But China had a problem
Yeah.
with their elderly. I say a problem with their elderly, but they had their demographics were upside down because they've been killing all their women for the last 2 generations. The young girls.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, when you look at thinning out the population of Earth and get who you're going to get, well, at the time I had a friend, she's black, and we were watching the news one day, and it said the federal government is looking to get the vaccines out first. Remember that when the vaccines first came out? Who's going to get them first? Everyone was, I'm like, oh, I don't want to take that. But, all the normies were like, oh, I want that. Who's going to get it first? It's a limited basis. And the government said, we're going to get it to the most vulnerable in our society, the minorities, the African-American population, and the elderly. And my friend, she's black. She looked at me and she said, now, Corey, if I learn one thing in my life, anytime the government wants to give shit to the elderly and the black first, it's going to kill you. It's going to kill you every last damn time. I said, you know it, girl.
Yeah, I was talking to an African American woman at a restaurant one day. We were sitting at the bar, and she said the exact same thing. She said,
people aren't stupid.
She said, no way. They've been killing the black community forever. And and I saw something from the 90s, right, with the Central Intelligence Agency running cocaine into the inner cities and stuff, and I thought,
oh yeah,
our government has been using these migrant communities. They've actually been using all of the poorer socioeconomic communities, not just minorities. I mean, if you look at what they've done to veterans in VA hospitals, right, back in the 50s, they were testing plutonium and uranium by injecting it into them without their consent.
Sure.
Right. I mean, that's what kind of sick people work in government, right?
Oh, well, they're just bean counters, man. And bean counters are freaking sociopaths. They're just looking at strict numbers. You know what? Here's a theory that just occurred to me. Why would you pump methamphetamine and social ills into the white community of the southern white community? Like, why would you keep the South poisoned and dumbed down and poor? Well, it would occur to me they're one of the primary providers of soldiers for the U.S. military.
Yeah.
Because who goes to the military? people who can't afford to go to college, people who
Right.
want to get that grant or get a start or get educated or something.
Right.
And if you need that base, well, you just generate it generational. You just keep them poor, and you keep, the
Right.
social ills and methamphetamine and crap, and you keep those families destroyed and broken, so they all go into the military.
Well, and I've been talking a lot about that on What the Fuck's Up, sort of what's happening. And that you can really trace back to, the progressive era, right? It's funny, Bernie Sanders and AOC, right? What are they all talking about? They're talking, the billionaires, right? What aren't they talking about? Themselves, the fucking millionaires, right? The people who became millionaires on the public dole. How is that even possible, right? And so the only way somebody in Bernie Sanders or Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez's congressional districts are going to become millionaires is if they retire and give their seat to someone else, right? But the progressive era, the late 1800s, is what brought us the 16th Amendment in 1913 and the Federal Reserve Act. And those are the two tools that they use to keep, the lion's share of Americans as what I would call working class people, right? They need a base of people whom they can suck their money out of every week or 2 weeks, to keep themselves going. And that's what the income tax has given them. And then, it's just like, the Biden administration, they got the Federal Reserve Act gave them a extremely elastic money supply, right? So they can bring all of these illegal immigrants to the United States, give them all these huge fucking cash cards and say, go spend. And so when you increase the demand for a good, the price of that good goes up, and we call that inflation. And you can see that, pretty substantially in housing. I mean, Arizona, the housing market, especially the apartment complex market, was hit hard, because the federal government was saying, hey, we're going to place these people in your apartments and we're going to pay the bill, so don't worry about it. You don't ever have to worry about rent. And so what happened? You had this squeeze on people who lived there as rents went up. People couldn't pay them. And then the people who had been there for maybe 4, 5, 10 years were squeezed out into some shitty dump in a worse neighborhood, so that, the federal government was paying these exorbitant rents for a lot of this migrant population. And that dumped a lot of people, into even worse poverty than they were before. So, it's our system of government is not a capitalistic system of government.
No, and when you look, I was talking to my mother about yesterday or today about the prescription meds, that Trump just did. And I mean, we've all known, because we live so close to Mexico. A lot of people go to Mexico for medication, for surgeries, for dental stuff, for whatever. I got my teeth done when I was in Guatemala. It would have been like $10,000, and I got it done for like $500.
Right.
In Guatemala,
Right. I'm going down tomorrow for tacos.
down to Guatemala.
I need some tacos. I just love tacos. I mean, have you ever traveled Mexico? I mean, one thing everybody should do is travel Mexico and compare tacos throughout all of Mexico. And northern region tacos are by far the best. The carne asada they prepare there, radically different once you get down into southern Mexico, down by Guatemala.
A lot of seafood down there.
Yeah, got to get some. I need a taco fix.
Yeah,
That sounds like fun.
really good tacos in Mexico.
Yeah.
And Guatemala for that fact.
Mm-hmm.
But where was I? I'm thinking about tacos here. I'm thinking about carne seca. Oh, hey, there's a place in Tucson for carne seca, man.
Is there?
Nice restaurant. Next time you and your better half get down here, we'll have to make a reservation, because it's not super fancy, but it's always packed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's known. It's a historic restaurant, like a old historic house in the middle of down. You probably know it. I forget the name of it, but it's been there for over 100 years or something.
Is it downtown?
It is, and they have this meat that they marinate, and they then put it on the old method was put it on like a tin roof,
Yeah.
and they let it sit in the sun, and they flip it every other day, and all those flavors from the chilies and tomatoes, it all concentrates down into the jerky. Then when they're ready to cook it, they rehydrate that into the broth, and it's called carne seca. And you have a rich condensed, like consomme meat, and then they put that into the tacos, and it's like on a different dimension.
Right.
But if you haven't been there yet, we'll take you there next time you come down there.
Yeah. My wife and I, whenever a lot of our dates are, we'll go do border runs
Mm-hmm.
when I get to town and pick her up, and we'll go run the border, and then whenever we're passing through Tucson, we'll stop and we'll eat at a place called El Charro del Rey. Have you ever heard of it?
Oh, it's like an old house.
Well, it's I don't know if it's an old house or not. It's an older building, and it's right next to one of the Marriott properties.
Yeah, that might be the restaurant.
Well, in El Charro, I think they have two restaurants. One's more of a Mexican dish oriented, and I think it's in a house that you're talking about just down the street.
Yeah,
And there's El Charro del Rey, that's a steakhouse. Really, really, I mean, they have prime cuts of meat. Probably one of my favorite restaurants,
nice.
In the state of Arizona. Like,
Do you know that Tucson has a designation for restaurants?
do they?
No, but it's a special one. There's only 2 cities in the world, is it, honey, or America? Might be America that have this designation. Tucson's one of them, and I forget it's the Gastro Award, Gastro something award, and you can find every international cuisine in Tucson.
Yeah.
Like it's literally from Ethiopia to Mongolia there's a restaurant represented,
Mhm.
and it's a pretty prestigious award. Not many get that, so
Yeah.
but it's one of them. I didn't know that until we moved down here.
There are some pretty good Ethiopian restaurants in the Phoenix area as well.
Yeah, over on McDonald, there's
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
But yeah, you see there. So anyway, back to this here, back to the fascism. Where do you think it's going? I asked my friend the other night, I asked Skullcap, I said, what do you think the most successful fascist country's ever been? And he said, America, the United States. And I said, really? And I hadn't thought of it that way.
Mhm.
But listening to you talk about it, when you get, I'm going to share my screen here. Because I did some studying today because I was really kind of moved by that conversation we had the other night. And right, that one, and where's the one with whole bunch of one with well, we'll start here with this right here. And I wasn't aware of this when I first did it. Entire screen. We're not gonna do that. We can hear it. Okay. Let me share my screen with the audience here. So like when you go to the Lincoln Memorial,
Mhm.
right here, this is the Lincoln Memorial, and these are the armchair rests right there. Those are fasce right there. You can see them. You can see the bindings. You can see the wood. You can see the carving.
Mhm.
Daniel Chester's French's Abraham Lincoln prominently depicts fasces on the ends of the armrests. And then you go here and you get to the front, and the fasces on the base of the Lincoln Memorial steps depict the axe, an eagle, and 13 bound rods. Right there, Lincoln Memorial. Then you got the Lincoln Memorial's columns are the architectural representation of the fasces. Right there again. Seated in a chair with the fasce depicted on the front, the figure symbolizes the fasces' dual concepts of justice and union. It's throughout our government. And here's the second inaugural address, which is on the carved into the wall there at the Lincoln Memorial, and there's a fasce and an eagle right there as well.
Mhm.
And there's George Washington with the fasce, and this is a very famous sculpture. I think there's 13 or 14 of those across the country, different places. They made a bunch of them, and he's standing prominently, George Washington and the fasce, and a stick. And so you got to know at this point that fascism wasn't a negative, a bad, evil thing, concept back during the founding of the country, and it was a symbol of unionism, of being together. And when did you ever read The Social Contract?
Yeah.
But is it, how do you pronounce his name? Is it Jean-Jacques Rocher? Am I close? How do you pronounce his name? You might know a bit better than me.
Is it
But
Rousseau?
Rousseau, Jean-Jacques Rousseau. It's French. I'm not good at French, but
Yeah, neither am I.
he gets into the birth of different types of governmental. He starts like in the caveman days and goes on, and what men are ruled under. But the psychology of it is we all come from tribes, and we have that instinct. And you have your family, then you have your clan, and you got the tribe, and governments grew out of this natural association. I had a Navajo friend I talked to years and years ago as well, and he said to me, he said, Corey, when we were migrating south, it was Navajo. He said, when we were migrating south from the Alberta area, and some of us came from the east a little bit as well, different times, we would go, and as we migrated and moved and had children, when we got to about 80 to 100 people, we would bifurcate the tribe. Because that's where discourse and disharmony arises.
Right.
About 80, you can control, you can talk, you can be represented, you can sit in your councils, you can hear each other, but you get much bigger than that, and the human empathy component disappears, and all hell breaks loose, and people start becoming mean and evil to each other.
Well, once you get that big, it sort of, it sort of becomes anti-democratic. Right.
Yeah, you need more authority to maintain the control.
Right, and that's sort of why I think the fasci that you were talking about with respect to the founding fathers and all of the symbolism on our all of these statues and all these monuments. I think that's different than fascism as an economic concept. I think that, is a function of, the Enlightenment that these people were coming out of, the rational thought movements that were taking place. So if you look at fascism, I would say that, the United States was not fascist. Our Constitution is not fascist in orientation, that it's a product of those Enlightenment movements. Because when you look at fascism, fascism looks at the individual as part of a collective, right? Mm-hmm. The U.S. Constitution upholds the individual.
Yes, absolutely.
As the idea.
Primarily.
Right.
Yeah.
And so a fascistic system, like look at the government of Mexico, look at their constitution. That's a fascist constitution. Right. Mm-hmm. And so, it looks to the collective whole, the well-being of all, as opposed to our Constitution, which upholds the value of the isolated, the discrete individual. Right. And so, in our system, which is supposed to be accompanied by, a capitalistic system. The founders didn't say, we're going to have a capitalistic system, right? They created a system whereby people could be free to engage in trade and commerce and to grow. And they created a system then that allowed them to manage their government, as opposed to, in a fascistic system, the government managing the people. Does that make sense? We've done a flip in the 20th century, and that flip was, we no longer manage our government. Our government manages us, and they do that in large part by maintaining this one-party system, this uni-party system where, when's the last time anybody cut the budget, right? By anything meaningful. You have all these budget talks, and Republicans are all, we're going to stand strong. We're going to cut the budget, right? And the Democrats are saying, we need to cut the budget, but we got to be responsible. And so, they're always, it's this game they play, right? And so let's say you got 50 Republicans and 50 Democrats, and they want to pass something that the Democrats need for their voters to vote for them. The Republicans have to say no because their voters will vote against them if they say yes. And so what they do is the Republicans say, here, we'll toss you this one Republican because he's in a district that they want him to say yes, right?
Or he's in a moderate district.
Right. And so that's what
Yeah.
and that's the way the system works. And so, we have a Congress now that is very aristocratic, right? They're kind of like the cardinals to the Pope, right?
Mhm.
How the hell do you get rid of them? The only way to get rid of a sitting member of Congress these days is for that sitting member of Congress to do something that radically opposes the system, right? And then they will throw that member of Congress under the bus. They need a couple radicals that can screech on the other side. They don't mind that. But
Well, it's good diversion too.
yeah, but when somebody truly challenges what has really become, a system, the U.S. federal system of government,
Mhm.
then that person will go to prison. They will run them out of office. That's the only way to get rid of them.
You know what I was interested to live through and witness a few months back when Trump was putting his cabinet together. He put Matt Gaetz up, right,
Huh?
for the AG, and it came out that scandal with that 17-year-old girl,
Right.
who he flew over, and they said child trafficking, all that, wherever that landed. But it was interesting. The most interesting part to me was that the ethics committee was well aware of all of that.
Mhm.
They knew the story. They had known the
Right.
story, and they were deciding, and they were telling the American people, well, the ethics committee has decided not to come forward with all the information and make an issue out of it.
Right.
So regardless of what the people wanted, the ethics committee decided amongst themselves
Right.
they weren't going to turn over the evidence and tell people what this guy had done or anyone else had done. It is the equivalent to Jeffrey Epstein dirt,
Right.
or any other dirt.
Right.
So Congress maintains its own dirt pile
Uh-huh.
to decide who stays and who goes for leverage.
Right.
That's insane to me.
But that's exactly the way it works. I thought it was funny though. Speaking of U.S. Ed Martin, Trump put up for U.S. attorney for the District of Columbia,
Mhm.
and one Republican opposed him, Republican Tillman, and so Trump ultimately pulled the nomination. And who did he put up? Gloria Allred, who doesn't have to be approved by Congress. She'll serve the rest of President Trump's term and not have to be approved by Congress. So, it's Democrats. Do you want to take this guy, or you want somebody that is going to do even worse? And then Tillman still winds up with a job in the White House, but an actually more important job, I think, because now he's in control of the entire we're going to come and break your system apparatus, right? And
Mhm.
so, he's not happy about getting held up for his nomination and, by Tillman. But now he's in a position where he can actually do more damage to this corrupt system that emerged in the 20th century. So.
Shifting gears a bit, but not really. What do you think about this new prescription executive order that got passed today by Trump?
I think it's funny as hell because, we have been subsidizing.
Speaking of fascists,
Speaking of fascism, we have been subsidizing Canada. We've been subsidizing the West European countries, Australia, a lot of the Central European countries for a very long time, right?
Mhm.
And we've been subsidizing them, through their pharmaceutical pricing.
Right.
You probably know more about it than I do, but we talked earlier, and one of the topics of the conversation was that, Trump said, look, we're not going to pay any more than you charge, for the most expensive country you sell it to, right?
That's right.
The pharmaceutical companies virtually give it away to Europeans while they charge Americans out the ass, right? Americans wonder why their health insurance is so expensive and they can't get it.
Drugs.
It's because these drug companies, right? They keep you sick, first of all. and then they are raping they're raping your insurance carriers whenever you need a prescription med, so that they can subsidize the European countries. Charlie, chill out.
Yeah. Not only that,
She's going crazy.
not only that, but then you can't afford your health care insurance. You can't afford health care without insurance, but you
Right.
can't afford insurance unless you have a job. And you can't get health insurance and any meaningful insurance unless you have a good job and go to college and you're in the system invested in the fascist country.
Right. Well, and part of the problem is realistically that the United States government is so involved in healthcare. I mean, that's probably one of the most blatant examples of anti-capitalism, pro-fascism in the U.S. system of government, is its complete involvement in takeover of healthcare, right? And so it's not necessarily just your Blue Cross Blue Shield or Aetna health insurance plan that's paying exorbitant rate for these pharmaceuticals so that they can subsidize Europe. It's that the federal government is paying these exorbitant rates so that you, the taxpayer, can subsidize the Europeans. And so when we had that conversation today, I thought it was funny because when I was in South America, right, I'd pick up hitchhikers, a lot of European hitchhikers down in the Southern Cone, and so I stopped to see if they needed a ride. It was raining. And so I gave them a lift, and they were going the same place I was. I can't remember. It was some glaciers down in the Southern Cone or volcanoes, one of the two. But they were from Europe. And so we stopped. We're having dinner at a restaurant one day, and we're having a conversation. And they were so anti-Trump. And I said, well, why are you anti-Trump? And they said, well, what he's doing with NATO and what he's doing with, all these other stuff, making us pay more and blah, blah, blah. And so I explained it to her this way. I said, look, the United States has been subsidizing your vacation policies, right? You get to be down here screwing around, paid
3 months a year.
Paid in South America 3 months a year, right?
Yeah.
Just
3 months.
walking around with your backpack, mooching rides from strangers. And I said, where does your government get the ability to do that? And she says, well, taxes. And I said, okay, well, look at this. How much does your government spend on military defense every year? And she didn't know the answer to that question. And I said, well, it doesn't spend very much because the United States pays the lion's share of NATO, as well as the WHO, as well as the United Nations, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the United States, if the United States is paying the most amount for NATO, and your country's not paying anything for it, it has more money to give to you in terms of social welfare benefits. Now, your politicians, I said, hate Trump because he's making them face a very ugly reality and choice. And I said that ugly reality and choice is that they're now going to have to spend more on military defense, which means they're either going to have to raise your taxes even more than they are now, or they're going to have to cut your social welfare benefits. They're going to have to call you tomorrow and tell you to fly home because your 3-month vacation ended in a month, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so those are some ugly choices that are facing all of these European politicians. And that is why they so adamantly hate Donald Trump, right?
Yeah. The laws of economics follow the laws of physics.
Yeah.
You have to put in work. And work has to be done in order for profit to be made.
Right.
And I when I was in hitchhiking around Norway years ago, I had a number of friends that I met down there. Same thing, hitchhiking around, had some conversations. They say, "Oh, Norway, we don't know why America just can't be like Norway." I'm like, "Because someone's got to do all the fucking work, man." Like,
Right.
Well, I said, "Is that well? If you guys were all socialists, you could live like we do." I said, "No. Like, first of all, 85% of your guys' economy is from the gasoline under you, the oil that you pump out.
You should have said, who's going to pay for your socialism if we don't work?
That's right.
Right.
That's right. I said, you guys don't have I said, what's your Air Force? You have
Right.
like 3 or 4 planes? No,
Yeah.
it's NATO and the United States.
Right. And that's what's, I mean, that's what's the funniest thing about Canada, right? Because Canada, they always tariff the shit out of our agricultural commodities. And then we slap tariffs on Canada, and Canadians are like, oh, we're not going to America. America sucks. We hate America. Well, don't come.
Don't come.
That's fine.
Fine.
I won't have to deal with your fucking nightmare traffic issues that you're causing because you want to come down, to Arizona when I'm in town, and you want to congest all the fucking roads because you want to get away from your nightmare winters up there.
Dude,
Yeah.
Tucson is full of Canadians, dude.
Yeah,
You can always tell them.
It is everywhere. And so they,
Yeah.
Canada's talking about, oh, we should tax trucks as they come through on their way to Alaska or back. And I'm like, okay, well, let's just tax Canadians every time they want to come visit the United States. We'd raise $1,000 million billion, right?
I had a friend years ago, and we haven't
Is that
talked
a-
since the last
is that a
time.
number?
She's Canadian. Since the last time we got into some heated arguments
Oh, you
about
still have a doctor?
no about
Oh,
trans.
God.
Her son turned transgender, and he got some flack from someone, and it ended where she had said, "Well, no one should hurt my son." And I said, "Yes, including his doctor. You're right."
Right.
And that was the last thing we said. But all the years I've known her,
Mhm.
she lived in a kind of a border town there on the province, and East Anwood. Now she's in Alberta, but she comes down to America for her computers, to buy her vehicles, to
Right.
buy everything. She buys everything in
Right.
America and drives back. And I said, "Why do you do that if we're so horrible?"
Well,
Well,
not only that, but the Canadians who can afford to do so, they come to the United States for their health care because their socialized systems in Canada. I mean, it's like going to the VA, right? You know what
Yeah.
I'd do if I were a veteran? I would tell that idiot Senator Murkowski from Alaska and that equally idiotic idiot Senator Kelly from Arizona. I would say get rid of the Department of Veteran Affairs, right? They spend billions of dollars every year on this huge bureaucracy. And I would say give all veterans a 100% carte blanche, open-ended insurance plan that pays for 100% of their military-related disabilities and injuries. And then that way they can go out into the private sector and get as close to whole as possible at the doctor of their choosing without us having to spend billions of dollars on a bureaucracy that makes our veterans sit around in lobbies and wait for health care. Right.
And pisses them off because they can't get health care and they're dying.
Right.
Just give them a card and have them go find the doctor and have the government pay for it.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah, 100%. How hard can it be? We don't need a huge bureaucracy for that. But it's the bureaucracy that gives them control over us, right?
right. Well, not only that, it's the fear. It's
Yeah.
it's the control. When the USAID thing was going on a few months back,
Mm-hmm.
those numbers coming out, I thought to myself, how many homeless people do we have in the country? How many are veterans? How many I mean, with just one of those USAID scams,
Right.
you could have put people, all the veterans, homeless veterans, you could have solved all their
Right.
their problems.
Right.
And still had money left over. Tons of money left over.
Yeah.
Where is all this money?
It's gone.
Like,
It's
like-
gone.
why
been
would our
skimmed out.
politicians and government take all this money from us and just distribute it in the world and keep us? Who's pulling the strings up there, and why are they pulling the strings that way? And I mean, we're just like cattle producing things on a farm, and it's just getting farmed out to the world. And I mean,
That's what we are. That's what I've been saying.
yeah,
We are nothing but cattle, right? And it's the income tax and the Federal Reserve and the lack of a standard value for our currency, i.e. the lack of something like a gold standard, that
Mhm.
give them the power and the ability, they keep us marginalized. And that's what the income tax is for, to keep most American marginalized.
and
So
dumb.
Right. And so they take this money, every check out of your check before you even get it. And that makes you even more marginal. And then what do your politicians do? Your members of Congress, they say, well, here's a program to help you, right? And then anybody that tries to take away that program, they call on all of those recipients of the program to vote for them so that they can defend and
That's right.
support this program.
And they just localize the fight down at our
Right.
level when they're doing what they want to do up there anyway.
Right. And so it gives them this base of money that they can suck out of us. And then of course we've got this liquid money supply that can contract or expand at will. And
Mhm.
they're just cutting checks to or organizations like USAID to go run, amok in the world. And that's why a lot of countries don't like Americans, because we're running amok in their countries. We're
Sure.
dictating to them what they have to do. And, but a lot of this USAID money is being funneled back to our politicians. And
That's
so
right.
It's a huge corrupt scam. There's not a single member of Congress. If a member of Congress has not spoken out about what USAID has been doing, and about what other organizations like USAID have been doing,
They're receiving money from
Either-
USAID.
because Congress's primary duty with respect to the executive branch of government and judicial branch is oversight, right?
Mhm.
So they're either not doing their job as oversight, or they're complicit in this scheme. I think a lot of them are complicit because it helps them get
Yes.
reelected. It helps maintain the system, right? So American representative government is really sort of a facade, and
It is a facade.
Trump broke that, and he showed that facade, and that's what American politicians hate about Trump. So
They had a study not long ago. Someone quoted it to me. I didn't even see it, but it said that once your state population gets over like 200,000, I think it was 200 or 300,000, maybe 500,000. It was pretty low. Once your state gets past that, you effectively lose all representation,
Yeah.
meaning that your mayor / governor, you'll never meet with them. Your congressman, senator,
Right.
there's no way that you can ever interact with them or get them to listen to you meaningfully.
Right.
They can't, more than you talking to them, they can't know you
Right.
because it's just so big.
Yeah.
So the argument was that our system of representation isn't even accurate and real anymore. It's just a facade. It's just, we just pretend that it works.
right. Yeah, and that's a lot of what's happening right now is we've brought these machines into our system, and that reminds me of your backdrop, right? Your
Mhm.
screen behind you.
The
Right.
Matrix.
Who the fuck can understand that? Nobody.
People that
Absolutely.
just stare at that and learn that language.
Absolutely nobody can understand what's flowing behind you, right? And you'd have to be a top-notch scholar to be able to understand and
Mm-hmm.
interpret what it's.
You have to be a digital coding wizard.
Yes, but that's what you have to be to understand our elections, because they have made our elections so complex with the introduction of technology that who can possibly understand them?
They can't. It's just the fog of war. They made the medical system, health insurance, even applying for benefits. If you've ever been as poor as I have in
Right.
the past, like it's damn near impossible.
Yeah.
And they want paperwork, and you got to send it in. And then you got to go get on some account with a certain verification company, and then once that's
Right.
done, you get this other code, and
Oh my
it takes
God.
you weeks and weeks and weeks to
You know
even
what?
sign up for anything.
I just, Finn just passed,
Oh, really?
my boy Finn. Yeah, he passed.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he passed about a month ago.
Oh, I'm
And,
sorry to hear that, man.
very,
That's rough.
very, very traumatic. And so I just started looking for, a new dog to hang out with me in my travels in the wild.
I got one for you.
And so
She can't go anywhere.
I've met your dogs.
I don't want any of your dogs,
I've
Corey.
met your dogs, and they're all
I'm not coming by
retarded.
your place. No, your dogs are sweet. Your dogs are sweet. I need a dog that's gonna, fight a bear so that I can survive and stuff.
That's not.
Yeah.
That'll be Pepper.
But
Pepper
I-
Pepper might be the one. She might
Yeah.
be slow, but she might be
She'll
the
never
one.
run away from
No.
camp either.
No.
but I was looking at rescues, right?
Uh-huh.
Because sort of, if you can get a rescue at about a year old, you can sort of, I think, train out the bad
course.
traits that other people
Yes.
put in because they're not too old.
Yeah.
But you don't have to deal with the potty training and them eating every fucking thing in your house, right?
Yeah.
Your
Yes.
shoes.
And so especially the shoes. Shoes are
The shoes, that
expensive
pisses
these
me
days,
off.
right? You know, all the Chinese slave-made shoes are so damn expensive now. It's like the price of Chinese labor has gone through the roof. Chinese
Yeah.
slave labor, I should say. But
Yeah.
all of the pet rescues you apply to, I applied to one, and they're
Mhm.
like, "Wow, we got to do a virtual tour of your home."
I did that. I've been through this.
No, and it's like,
Go ahead.
you know, how about the good old days where I come, we meet, you see me interact with the dog, and you see
I'm not
the
a
dog,
psycho.
you see the dog interact with me, you know, but you got to do 3 references so they can call you references. And then if you got other pets, you know, you got to bring the other pets so that they can see them all interacting together. And it's like America has become just this overwhelming bureaucratic state, even in the private sector, even for
Yeah.
rescue. So you know, I'm not gonna do the rescue. When I get out of here tonight, I'm gonna put a deposit down with a breeder, and I'm just gonna get a puppy.
Yeah.
And
Puppy.
Yeah.
yeah, 'cause-
Or you can, our most recent dog, Loki.
Mhm.
I've been wanting a dog for 2 years, and I didn't need a dog, but I had Pepper, and Alicia's got her Opie, and I waited because all my dogs have come at the right time.
Right.
And I waited and waited and waited, and I looked at the dog, and I was going through the whole thing with the breeder for a border collie here in town.
Mhm.
And they're like, "We're gonna need a virtual tour of your house. We're gonna have to come look at it. We gotta
Right.
check out your gates and make sure the locks and breed, all that shit." And
Yeah,
they want a criminal background on me,
yeah,
all kinds of shit. I'm like, that's insane. I'm doing you a favor and taking a dog that needs a home.
right.
Like, how about we don't do this? And we just waited, and Loki showed up. Maybe on your travels, I don't know. Maybe you'll maybe you'll find a res dog or something, man.
Start
you
putting
know-
it out there.
You know, it was cool. I was out doing some border photography, probably about a week after Finn passed, and
Mhm.
there was a coyote. He just came, and he would get within 20 feet of me, and he was just hanging out with me at night while I was out there
Mhm.
doing border photography, and
Mhm.
it was really kind of cool.
Mhm.
But then I was just down in Patagonia, you know,
Yeah.
that area, the grasslands.
Mhm.
And I was cooking up a steak for me and Charlie for dinner that night, and this was a couple days ago. And I looked behind me, and there's an owl about 10 feet away from me, just sitting on a tree watching me cook my steak.
Mhm.
And I thought, man, you better not come for my steak, buddy. And he couldn't. He couldn't come for Charlie because he never picked Charlie up. I mean,
Yeah.
and then Charlie might eat it. But the very next morning, I woke up, and Charlie and I were driving down the trail out, and this hawk, it was so cool. This hawk flies next to my car, and he's carrying this snake in its talons, and it dropped the snake right next to my car. And
That's like the freaking founding of Mexico
Right.
prophecy there.
yeah,
With
so,
the Aztecs, where
Mhm.
they find the eagle with the
Yeah.
snake and on that island, right? And
Yeah.
yeah,
yeah, it's BLM land, so I can't really go start my own city there, but
no,
I can camp for 14 days without moving, but then I have
Mhm.
to relocate in 14 days.
yeah. Well, I'll help you find another dog that suits you, man. I
Yeah.
do. I know
You
your dog
will.
You will.
When after my little pug died, I struggled a lot because she was really my buddy. She went everywhere with me, and and so I started looking, and I saw this picture of Opal in Craigslist,
Mhm.
and I'm like, well, that's going to grow up to be a big dog.
Yeah.
I've never had a big dog. And so I kept looking, but that picture kept sitting there.
Right.
So I finally called, and turns out that it was a young couple that bought this puppy from this breeder, and they didn't have time to take care of her, and they did some stupid shit like try and pierce her ears. And so I drove up to Santa Barbara from Orange County, and I drive a white car, and we pulled into this parking lot, and there was like it was really packed, but out in the far distance, there was only one kind of empty space to go. It was next to another white car, and they showed up in a white car.
Right.
And they handed me my little white puppy. And when I held on to her, she put her little paws around my neck and held on to me for dear life.
Right.
But you know, there was a spirit about her picture. So
Yeah.
you'll find the right one.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Eventually. Yeah. Finn was my buddy. He'd been 16 countries. Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Finn was,
that's a hard loss. I'm sorry.
yeah, Finn was, more traveled than probably 98% of all Americans. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dogs are great.
it was a tough loss, but I have Charlie, and we're hanging in there. But I'm looking for a cattle dog because, they're really, really loyal dogs.
Arizona's got good cattle dogs.
Yeah.
Like you can find breeders, especially up around like Snowflake, that area up in there. There's for some reason there's a lot of those up there. Payson area,
Yeah.
got a lot of cattle dogs. Even down here in Tucson, a lot of people have cattle dogs out here on the outskirts.
Yeah, I was just down in Tucson. Somebody was advertising a cattle dog, and I went to visit it, and it was as far as physical specimens go, it was absolutely perfect. Mentally, it was like the Tasmanian devil. Yeah, and so I think I could have, tamed the dog for me and made it a very loyal companion for me. It's just the rest of the world I would always have to be worried about, and I'm not looking for that, trait in a dog. I don't want a vicious.
Yeah.
No. So yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway,
We'll find one. Well, what I want to ask you about here, to go back to fascism for a second. I don't love talking about dogs, I do, but in control of the American people, for you got my mind going on America being a fascist nation, and I've never thought of it that way, but I have been since. And you know what? By the way, Skullcap said the same thing. He said America's fascist, and I'd never seen that, but he did. When we have the RNC and the DNC, a lot of people don't know how this works, but who the people vote for, who they, when Trump gets up there or whatever, who's ever on the right this time or who's ever on the left, they just form this emotional bond. Oh my God, Biden's going to save us, or Hillary's going to save us, or McCain's going to save us, and they just fight to the death for this candidate.
right.
Not a lot of thought goes into how that candidate got there.
No.
And who's backing them financially, and you have the RNC and the DNC, and these two organizations decide who's going to be in that spot, like them, and who funds them, and where that money comes from. The people out there that have these PACs and have these money raising PACs, and they're these donors, right? These foundations and stuff, and those are the ones that decide who's going to be on that ticket, and those are decided because of the business interests locally and what that person's going to do for that business interest or that person, that community, or whatnot.
Or that pharmaceutical interest, as as RFK, dropped several names today about people who are, beholden to the pharmaceutical interests in the United States. But you're right. I mean, it's other people choose who's going to run. It's just like, you guys in Arizona, right? You've got Congressional District 7. I believe it's 7, Rahul Grijalva or something like that, right?
Yeah.
That's 7. He passed away, right?
Yeah.
Who are the powers that be saying that seat belongs to? His daughter, right? And so, a lot of, and that's why I said, Congress is more of an aristocracy today than.
Wait, pause. When you say the powers that be, those that are deciding who's going to run for that spot, you mean, or the or the constituency as a whole?
Yeah,
or just that select few who own the businesses.
The select few, right?
There you go.
The select few who manage democracy, right? And that's why I always I say we're a managed democracy. We're not a democracy. Democracy is very rough and tumble, but we're definitely managed. With the, Trump gets rough and tumble, and he won, and because I think people are tired of managed democracy. But the CD7 seat, for example, you guys as Secretary of State, that Adrian Fontes, who should never be Secretary of State, he fucks elections up so badly. Democrats win.
How do you feel about Adrian Fontes? Right?
Yeah. He needs to lose. Alex Collin is running against him for Secretary of State. He's the only Republican I know that's come out so far in the primary. I support him personally 100%, and he needs to do to Adrian Fontes in this political race what he does to Adrian Fontes in court, which is essentially kick his ass. Yeah. And but Adrian Fontes had come out and said, "Oh, I think I'm gonna run for this CD7 seat." Right? Boom! The powers that be just dogpiled his ass, and he backed out. Oh no, I'm just gonna stay Secretary of State. I don't deserve it yet, and so he's part of the problem. He's afraid to run. He's afraid to go against those people who control the Democratic Party and who dictate who gets seats. But Rahul Grijalva's daughter, what has she ever done? Does anybody even know?
She can be controlled.
It doesn't matter. She can be controlled, and
that's it.
And so they're going to give her. So it's an inherited seat, right? Mm-hmm. And if that's not aristocracy, I'm not sure what is. But to stay on the same lanes, Republicans are the same way. I mean, look at Lisa Murkowski in Alaska. I've mentioned her before tonight. Her dad was a senator for the state of Alaska. And then when he decided he was going to step down to run for governor, well, if the seat belonged to who? His daughter, and she's been there ever since, and damn near impossible to get rid of. But Americans really need to wake up to the fact that they're not living in a democratic system.
No. Well, let me play devil's advocate to my own question here. Back in the day when we had colonies, in the 1700s, early 1800s, when our government formed and was there, not everybody voted. Mm-hmm. Only landowners voted, right?
Right.
White male landowners.
Right.
So, and business owners. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't everybody anyway. And of course, the RNC and the DMC are the equivalent back then. The groups that got together and decided who was going to run were the people who owned the mill and the farmland and the shipping dock and the insurance companies or whatever. Mm-hmm. They were those. That was the American way originally, I would think. Right. In part, but like I say, we're so big right now, these people no longer represent the average person, and the average person has been turned into a chattel in this country to just grind our asses off our entire life with have sick food and bad entertainment, and just for the rest of the world, it seems.
Right. Well, and I guess what makes it palatable to be that chattel for most Americans is this belief that they actually have a say in who's going to be their next congressman, right? And so, it really wasn't until Trump, I think, that people started to say, hey, what the fuck's up, right? Mm-hmm. We need to do something different because, what we're doing isn't working. And so at least with Trump, we get somebody who's going to represent the interests of normal, everyday American people. And that's why sort of this two-party system this one-party system, I should say, that we've had coming out of the 20th century, this uniparty, that's why it's really fractured. And so, you got all these uni-party members now associating with the Democratic Party. You got a lot of labor and other groups shifting alliance to the Republican Party, and you have this massive, restructuring taking place. And the people that support the uniparty system, like Stephen Richer in Maricopa County, right? Mm-hmm. That guy's about a scam artist if ever there was one. he thinks we should have, he's one of the principal managers of democracy, right? We can't have MAGA and we can't have these, crazy extremists in our government. And so we have to censor their speech and we have to demean them and we've got to be derogatory to them and we got to make sure the American people see them as the vile, evil people they are. And so that's how sort of him as a member of CISA and the national security state have been attempting to manage democracy, by demonizing people like me. So,
yeah. I've noticed something deeper going on as well with Trump. And like I say, I'm surprised he hasn't been offed yet. By going after the USAID, he went after the U.S. intelligence agencies and their ability to affect things abroad and smuggling drugs, weapons.
He went after the Holy Grail.
He did. Now with this pharmaceutical thing, he's going after. What's he going after? He's going after the pharmaceutical companies. He's kicking them in the dick. Americans are managed. 60-some-odd% of Americans are on some kind of a mind-altering pharmaceutical drug of some kind, benzodiazepines, SSRIs, name it, right?
Yeah.
He's going after RFK is going after the food industrial complex.
Right.
He's going after the dyes, the things that are poisoning us, that are allowing the hey there, we're back there. That's allowing the pharmaceutical companies to make so much money and profit on us. Just keep us. Right. They just sell us. It's like I don't know, going to a trainer. And you pay the trainer to make you thin, and then you go next door, and the trainer's spouse is selling ice cream, and you're buying ice cream from the trainer's spouse, and then you got to go to the trainer to lose weight again, right? Something like that. Like that's what they're doing to the American people.
Yeah, it's this.
It's to the American people.
It's a vicious cycle, and
vicious.
When I used
downright rotten.
I used to drink too much, right? And so I quit drinking. And so you got a lot of sugars in alcohol, right?
And converted sugars. They metabolize the same. Alcohol metabolizes the sugar.
Right. And so when I was when I went into the rehab program, I'm watching all the people doing the rehab program, all the therapists, and most of them are overweight with huge beer bellies. And and they're talking about how they overcome their problem. Right. They haven't.
No,
they haven't. Sugar is that, processed sugars are that substitute for the alcohol. And I'm the exact same way. And so I'm working right now very diligently to break my addiction to these processed sugars because they're very highly addicting. And the food.
I'm going through the exact same things. I quit drinking about a year ago myself. And I never ate sweets. Right. I mean, every once in a while I'd eat a sweet, I'd be out.
You didn't really eat them.
No,
before.
I didn't really eat them before. And now, my God, it's like,
it's like, give me a fucking cake, man. I want a cake or I want a bucket of ice cream. Right?
Dark chocolate bar, dude.
Right. Or just anything. And so, I've been good for a couple of days. And so, because I eat one meal a day and then I have dessert. And it's always way too much dessert, but I exercise a lot. I'm out. I'm always mobile. I don't sit. I don't have a desk job where I'm just sitting around on my ass all day.
That's what's going to save you.
Yeah, and so, but I cannot lose weight. I cannot lose a single pound of weight.
I think, and you should talk to Alicia about this because I think she can. I can hear her gears going. Eating one meal a day is probably part of the problem there, I would assume, but because I listen to her talk to her clients all day.
Yeah. So you have to, if you are eating one meal a day, you're not keeping your blood sugars level. So you got to have a little something a couple times a day, maybe 4 times a day.
Oh, you're trying to change my habits. You're a fascist. I'm sorry.
No, sir. I'm trying to help you feel better and lose weight.
I'll do that. I'll have,
and it seems really terrifying to do it, but like make a chicken salad and have a scoop, a little scoop of it in the morning, have a little scoop in the afternoon with some lettuce, roll it roll it in a tortilla, whatever, but
Right.
eat more frequently with less, and eat healthy.
I thought you were telling me to eat more sugar frequently.
No,
No.
no more sugar.
Yeah. I don't do chicken. You know what's interesting? Remember,
Well, whatever protein you do like.
remember the big kill off of chickens?
Which one? There's been a
Yeah.
couple in the last couple
Under-
years.
We just had another one.
Yeah, under Joe Biden.
Mhm.
When
Yeah.
egg prices went through the roof. It's really weird. My dogs, I would feed them raw chicken and they devoured, they absolutely loved raw chicken. After that kill off of chicken, I think they authorized them to start injecting chickens with all these, poisons.
Opal doesn't want to eat it.
Right. They
She's
will
not-
not. They would not touch chicken. They want absolutely nothing to do with it. And so I'm not going to eat it either. I trust my dog.
No.
Yeah. And so,
Yeah. Our dogs ate a lot of chicken back in the day, and then when that happened, you're right. And some of the vet told me a while back, well, actually, chicken really isn't good for dogs. Most dogs have chicken allergies. I'm like, dude,
They do.
dogs been stealing chickens for hundreds of years, not thousands. Like,
Dogs have chemical allergies.
chemical allergies, what's going on into the chickens. But you and I raised.
If I take Opal out
Uh-huh.
and there's, if we take her out to eat and we stop for food and there's chicken involved and I offer her some, she won't eat it.
Yeah.
She'll eat chicken from home,
Yeah,
but she won't eat chicken
But
from.
we raise our own chickens. I get
Yeah.
them unvaccinated. I raise them. I butcher them. I kill them. Alicia does the butchering. We do it together. And then they go into the freezer, and we eat on those, and we 25 at a time. And that's good chicken. Like, it tastes like chicken, cooks like chicken.
I've had your
But-
chicken, and you're right.
Yeah, it's good stuff, huh? But what do you think, back to Trump here? Do you think that what he's doing is he's dismantling these apparati behind the scenes?
Mhm.
That most Americans look at just the surface level problem, or what they're told is the problem. They like, who the fuck heard of USAID before a few months ago?
Right.
Maybe 10% of the U.S. population. No one knew. It was like this secret slush fund that was in the open that no one knew what it was.
Right.
Who knows that that their pharmaceuticals bill has been subsidizing Europe and the world for the last whatever amount of years. Everyone thought that's just what they cost.
Yeah.
Nobody knows, and Trump is showing us by dismantling these systems
Right.
and taking away their purse strings.
Right. And he's showing us who is causing the problem, because now we can clearly see the people opposed to Trump doing what he's doing. Right. It's Murkowski and Kelly, right? It's your member of Congress, whether the Senate or the House of Representatives, that have long supported these programs. And a lot of it is because, they make money off of these programs. How did Oscario Cortez, whatever the hell her name is, the donkey, become a multimillionaire in what?
I think you're talking about occasional cortex.
Yeah.
Every time you say that,
Is that what her name is?
because I think of the brain, and it's like this big, and
Right.
when it's occasional, it just blinks like
Right.
this once in a while, and the vision.
It's kind of like needs a bigger
What's your-
battery or something.
Yeah, no. What's your question about her again?
Well, how does she become a multimillionaire after 6 years of service as a member of Congress, right?
Stock market, investing, inside trading, obviously.
Yeah. And so, there was they're trying to pass a bill they called the Pelosi bill, right? To ban members of Congress from owning stock. Personally, I don't think it's constitutional.
I was just going to say it's not constitutional.
But see, each house can make their own rules, and courts can say absolutely nothing about it. They can make whatever damn rules they want. They can throw out a member if they want. And so each house could pass a rule that says if you are going to own stocks, you have to set up a real-time trade account that the American public can watch, right? And then that would give us, that insider track as to what stocks they're buying. So
Which
we would have a
destroy
better,
their ability.
right. We could buy stock, and it would destroy their power then to engage in insider trading, because it would be they would be doing it publicly. We could watch them do it, and we could trade at the same time, and it would take away that advantage. But it would share with us, the American people, who this country is supposed to be about, what stocks to buy, because something's coming down the pike, right?
Yeah.
And so, the House and the Senate can make their own rules. I don't think you can ban them from owning stock.
Yeah.
But,
Well, what's interesting is I want to say I love Trump, and Trump does great, but we're at the tail end of the pharmacological realm. I think we have computers and digital signals and neural interfaces that can stimulate parts of the body and brain and do exactly what a drug can do.
Right.
We have that technology now.
Oh, you know what? I'm just chatting over here with Board Troll about that right now.
Okay.
There is
I
they're
think
doing doing research. So like, when a person smacks their head and they wake up and they have a savant syndrome,
Yeah.
they're trying to see if they can duplicate this thing
well,
without actually damaging the brain,
Mhm.
but triggering certain areas of the brain. And looks really interesting. He
Yeah.
gave me some things to look at here.
Look at
So
that.
yeah.
But there's a lot of military application for Neuralinks and
They
holes
can
in
make
the
maybe
brain
they can make you a savant.
that can take away pain,
Yeah.
that can make you courageous. I mean, it has pharmacological effects using signals and computers in the brain.
right.
And we have that technology now, but it's like I have a feeling, because we got a new pope. First time in the world we've had an American pope. Is that by accident? USAID is dissolved.
Mhm.
We got a guy in the White House who can't be bought or bribed. Like, this is a big moment in the history of the world, not only America, but the world. And we're at a pivotal point, and I've my gut tells me that when you need to tear something down and rebuild it, who do you get to do that job? Well, you get a bankruptcy guy. You get a guy like Trump that can go in there and he's an executive. He's the ultimate executive, wheeler dealer. And I think we're heading towards a new era where the financial system, the pharmaceutical system,
Mhm.
the education system. I mean, I don't think people are going to be going to school for very, very much longer. Maybe one more generation, and those schools will be specialized. But I think your average education will become at home for most people.
Yeah.
That's where it's going. The overhead of going in there, and the security, and the kids, and the problems, and the gangs, all that shit, that'll go away. It's going to morph into something else.
Right.
And Trump tore down USAID. He's
Mhm.
tearing down the pharmaceutical companies. What other institutions do you think, and I'm just asking your opinion if you've thought about this, I don't put you on the spot, but is there anything else you see that we believe is normal, that we grew up with, that we know, that you can see going away in preparation for what's to come during and then after Trump's reign here?
Well, I think politically what's really been taking place for the last decade, and you can see it's not just Trump, it's the Supreme Court, but of course a couple of those picks were the Supreme Court, right? Like we grew up, and I'm like 100 years older than you are. And so,
Please.
but I grew up, we both grew up in the 20th century, right?
Uh-huh.
And the 20th century was this century of centralized government, this century of government by experts, right? By bureaucrats. And we see the Supreme Court has struck that down. They've struck the Chevron doctrine down.
Mhm.
And so, that really restricts the power of the bureaucratic state to dictate the terms of our existence, like we grew up in, right? We grew up with, for example, automobile manufacturing, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
If we were a capitalist country, you could just go build a car and sell it, but you can't just go build a car and sell it. And so we have all of these rules regarding automotive safety, right? That are,
And that's to regulate the future of that industry and the technology as we move forward as a collective.
well, I mean, not just that, but you have,
Standards, automobile standards, weight standards, emission standards,
yeah, but safety standards, things of that nature.
all that dictates how big, how wide, how far it can drive, where it can
Yeah.
be sold, where it can operate,
Uh-huh.
what its life expectancy is for that product.
Right.
And if you
so-
control those measures, you control the future of that industry, and
Right.
you can use those control mechanisms to pivot into a new era.
Right. And one thing they've really been trying to pivot into is alternative fuels, primarily electric cars. Of course, now they all hate Trump. I mean, not Trump, but Elon Musk,
Elon, yeah.
who popularized electric cars, the Tesla, right? And so, what I see happening, in the future, and it's going to be a huge battle, because this bureaucratic state apparatus that they developed during the 20th century and in the early 21st century, especially with the Department of Homeland Security, right? To me, that one's the most onerous, that needs to go away. But
DHS,
getting rid of this huge bureaucratic system is not going to be easy. And that's what we're witnessing right now, is this fight with the constant lawsuits to stop Trump, because they want to maintain this system. And so we're looking at, I believe, going into a restructuring of the federal arrangement in the United States, where the federal government is going to devolve a lot of power, I believe, under Trump, back to the states. And that gives us the ability to have something more closely representative of democracy than at the federal level, where our congressmen don't vote the way we want them to vote. They vote the way their rich constituents want them to vote, because they don't want to lose that money and lose re-election. And
the ones who give the money to the
Right.
RNC or the DNC to get them up there.
So what I see happening is Trump devolving a lot of these institutions to the states. And you sort of see the national security state responding to that. Arizona, the national security state is buried deep.
Exactly where I was going next with that. Keep going.
Yeah, they're buried very deep in the state of Arizona. They control just about every executive branch of government, and so even down to the level of county recorder and elections, right? And so
I've been screaming for years, not to interrupt you, but the county recorder is one of the most important positions in the government. Yeah. And no one gets it. They just let anyone do it, right? But the Democrats figured that years ago. If you control the county recorder, you can steal elections all fucking day.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, it's not just county recorder in Maricopa County. It's also the Board of Supervisors.
Yeah.
The Board of Supervisors has taken most of the power from the recorder after Stephen Richer. Stephen Richer renegotiated an arrangement on elections that denied the guy who kicked his ass in the election any real authority or power over elections, and gave it all to the board. And so, I mean, that's a corrupt arrangement from the get-go. And so you don't really seem to have the board wanting to give that power back to the recorder. So, let the board do what it will and let it be what it is. But, we're going to continue our work here in Arizona to fix a lot of the problems in their electoral system. And so I don't know if you watch the show, but, we make all this stuff public, and, all of these.
You guys have a great show, by the way. You guys have a great show.
Local officials, using personal emails and all, and that's a violation of the law. And so, we're gonna get to the bottom of it sooner or later. We're definitely gonna get to the bottom of 2020 sooner or later. But my guess is, maybe like the Epstein files, all the evidence regarding the 2020 election has already been destroyed because, our data retention policy says we can get rid of it now. And we already know that with respect to their emails. So,
Even if you and I, we're from Arizona here. You were working in Arizona the whole time that happened. Everyone in Arizona knows that the 2020 election was stolen, and 2022 for that matter. Everyone who lives here knows that Maricopa County is not a blue county.
Yeah.
You live here in Arizona, and you know there's no effing way Maricopa County went blue 2020. Everyone knew it was stolen. All the shenanigans, the freaking the Sharpie pens, all the damn machines that went down in 2022,
right?
Flat out went down, and you know, so we all knew it was stolen.
You ever seen anything like that?
No, never heard of anything like that.
Me either.
Yet, and it's normalized.
Right.
And the Democrats are like, oh yeah, you know, you guys just can't take it because Trump lost. Like, he didn't lose, man. Like, we live here, we know our neighbors. Like, there wasn't one fucking Biden sign anywhere in Arizona, especially Maricopa County. Every single house had a Trump sign. Business had Trump signs. We had a 25, 30 mile long, 30 or 50 mile long caravan of Trump supporters from like, shit, it was like from Carefree or Scottsdale all the way out to Lake Pleasant or something.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, my dogs and I during the 2020 campaign, we drove, it had to be about 37 states, right? And you know, it was evident that Biden did not win that election. You know,
everyone knew it.
The overwhelming support everywhere we went for Trump. It was everywhere, and there was literally no visible support for Joe Biden on the ground whatsoever, even in California. And so,
well, people think California is all blue, and it's not. It's just those cities right there on the coast.
Right.
You go inland 50 miles, 100 miles, it's all red all the way to Arizona and Idaho, Utah, Nevada. But what other infrastructure do you think Trump's going to have to go after in order to help out the little guy, America, to solidify his vision of taking away this power from this from the deep state?
Yeah.
I mean,
well, you know, I think, you know, he's already going after the big two, which would be the national security apparatus. That's going to be a tougher one to tackle than the pharmaceutical apparatus, I think. You know, but both of them are tied, right? We have, you know, the national security apparatus views the medical health apparatus as part of its program, right? You know, they use psychologists and psychiatrists in their mind experiments on the American people and how to create how to create better programs to propagandize the American people. They use the pharmaceutical industry. I mean, go back to the 50s, right? What was it like being a housewife? Right, you're
high
all day, stoned out of your brain on your Vicodin and whatever else, you know, kind of pharmaceuticals your doctor was just throwing at you like candy, right? And so, you know, that they're part and parcel. Not to mention the fact that the National Institutes of Health helped develop all of these weapons of war like COVID, you know, and other, you know, bacteriological and virological.
Gotcha.
Right, weapons and things of that nature that they can then employ, you know, in times of need. And so, you know, you have those two big, you know, that's the core right there. Once you can sort of bring down that core, you can start going after others. He started going after the National Labor Relations Board and a lot of the labor related institutions. And but I think once you see the big two crumble, I think you're going to see a lot more of it just sort of start to fall away.
I'll tell you what he's going to have to get after that he hasn't done yet, in my opinion, anyway. And before I get to that real quick, I want to touch on it. Governments have always used drugs to subdue people. You go back to the 1700s, it was laudanum, ether. You know, it was heroin. The Rothschilds brought opium in. The Clintons and the Bushes brought in cocaine. The Kennedys brought in whiskey. There's always some drug they're bringing in, you know. And if you want to get, you know, technical, Trump's family, they were into prostitution. They ran prostitution. His grandfather ran prostitution houses, both in the old world and the new world.
Right.
So it's always vice and drugs. But Trump's going to have to get into and take out or deregulate or whatever. And this ties right in with the national security agencies, the tech industry.
Mm-hmm.
Because I remember 2016, I was screaming from my computer, "You got to get a hold of tech. You're going to be." As a Trump, I think wrote an email to the White House saying, "You need to get a control of social media. They are going to lock us out. They will take control. You will lose your constituency. You will lose our ability to get the message across.
Right.
We're dead in the water if you don't get on this now. Because in 4 years, you will lose that election, 2020,
Right.
if you don't get on this now." And that's exactly what happened.
That's exactly what happened. That's what they did. They controlled the agenda. They controlled the narrative, and they did it by censoring our speech. Something that needs to happen, and I think this is more along the lines of Congress passing legislation, both at the federal level and at the state level, is they need to pass legislation that sort of eradicates these non-governmental organizations from being able to run our governments and do a lot of the type.
Yes. NGOs.
Right. And so NGOs are a big part of the problem because, the national security state learned, well, okay, yeah, Supreme Court gets mad if we, censor individual speech. But if we pay an NGO to do it, well, then maybe they won't have a problem with it. And that's exactly what's been happening is, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency works with the Center for Internet Security, and the Center for Internet Security then censors speech on behalf of CISA. And so the question is, well, it's not the government censoring speech, it's a private entity censoring speech, right? And
it's not CIA spying on you, it's MI6 who gives us the information, right. And we spy on them and give MI6 our information.
Right. And so, I think that once we can get the national security apparatus under control, and that includes both the military and, organizations like the CIA and the NSA and CISA, because the military,
Department of Army Intelligence.
Yeah, the military intelligence was actually where conservative censorship began in league with the British in 2016 once Trump was elected, and the Europeans now are just so pro censorship, they're off the charts. But the federal government needs to do some things, right? Like transportation, right? How do we have interstate highways, right? How do we have international ports and harbors and waterways, right? Well,
that was Constitution.
Yeah, right.
The federal government shall be permitted to operate as many ports and forts as necessary to secure the safety and facilitate whatever of the United States people, right?
And then internal waterways deal with interstate issues. Water, the flow of water generally is an interstate issue that somebody really needs to get a hold of in Phoenix, because you people are crazy. I mean, you keep attracting computer industries that are very water intensive.
Just talking to my mom about this today.
You got mining interests that are very water intensive. You got agricultural interests that are very water intensive. But you don't want to stop growing your population. You want to have the biggest city in the world in the middle of a desert where you've got all of these competing interests fighting for water. It's like
Phoenix is growing exponentially right now. It has been since I was born.
Yeah.
It's not going to stop. They are talking.
Oh, it'll stop.
It will. Well, the population is decreasing.
Phoenix will become like Detroit eventually.
It will. I foresee that. I foresee that.
Yeah.
It's the water that's going to do it. The price of water is going to be so high. They're still giving 99-year. For those of you who don't know, if you live in Arizona, when you develop a piece of property as a builder, you have to guarantee water for 99 years or 100 years. And if you don't, well, they're not going to permit. So you have to say, I can do that. And they just rubber stamped it. They've been rubber stamping that since the beginning of time. So they're getting to the point now where they're like, well, can we give 99 years worth of water to build this? And the answer is probably no. I mean, there's a lot of water under Phoenix. People forget about that water under there. There's a canyon, everyone, if you don't know, as big, if not a little bit bigger than the Grand Canyon, like the holding capacity of the Grand Canyon under Phoenix. Mm-hmm. It goes deep, like a mile deep, and it's like a big V of rock. Anyway, that water's recharged annually with the rainfall, and Phoenix has found ways. Like we have made improvements. All the green belts going through Scottsdale and Cave Creek and Carefree, those take all that water. They all get pushed into the Salt River. The Salt River dumps it and pumps it back into the aquifer to recharge it, as opposed to letting it go down to the Gulf. But then again, you destroy the river system and no water goes down the Gila to the Colorado and down to the Gulf, right? Colorado River water's is none of that makes it down to the Gulf anymore either. They have made gains in terms of our water usage in Phoenix, but it's not gonna be up to say. Dude, they were talking a while back. They were talking about building a canal from the Great Lakes to Phoenix.
Wow.
And taking that water from the Great Lakes and draining it down to the Phoenix area.
Just drain them like a big straw. How the fuck are you going to get it through the Rocky Mountains?
Well, I don't know. But how about this? Like, what about weather modification? If they can keep the rain, the snowpack over the Rockies, which they did, they packed it the last couple of years. It's all melting now. And from what I understand, I've been up there recently, but is Lake Mead and Powell, are they filling back up yet?
I don't know.
I heard that. I heard they were. I heard they're, because they were 24 feet to go before they'd have to stop making electricity at Glen Canyon Dam. And I'm sorry, not Glen Canyon, Hoover. And that's going the other way now. I understand it's come all along. So I don't know. Maybe weather modification. If I don't even like saying it, I don't want the government in charge of weather modification, but that seems to be an answer. Other than that, like, yeah, Phoenix is going to dry up someday.
Well,
and
you know what's funny is, they've been practicing weather modification and all of these atmospheric experiments for a long time. But since RFK has come out and started talking about it and saying, hey, if we find out you're doing shit that's hurting people, we're going to throw you to prison. The aerial spraying has dissipated substantially. And so, RFK was saying he believed, and this is what a lot of people believe, is that they were putting something in the fuel, the jet fuel. And it would appear, if that's the case, they've stopped adding whatever additives to the jet fuel.
I've been saying that forever.
And our skies have been relatively clear. And it's sort of getting back to my childhood-like skies again. But that's something we need to clear up. But I mean, do we really want people, because you got Anthony Fauci, right? He runs all of these programs, and then you get all these people in the CIA. They run all these programs, and they're very, very harmful to people. They're very destructive of the individual, right? Because they're people who believe that, and this is sort of cycling us back into fascism. Right. The fascism is a believes that it's, whatever benefits the collective whole is good for the collective whole, even if benefiting the collective whole means they need to put a hole in my head. Right. It's a benefit to the collective whole. So it's justified, killing me to do that. And so that's the way people like Fauci think. Right, I'm smarter than you. It's for the collective good. And
it's psychopathic.
Yeah, you start getting these psychopaths doing weather modification. I mean, do we really want? I mean, if Anthony Fauci was a geoengineer, would we really want that freak?
No, you wouldn't.
So the problem is, how do you get people to do weather modification that are going to do a responsible job when they got so much money they can buy Congress off, shut off the oversight that they're normally supposed to exercise, and do responsible weather modification? I'm not sure it's possible.
Sell it to the private sector. I don't know, but then again, then you have things like Blackwater. Private sector mercenary group that engages in things like the Boston bombing, in my opinion, or other operations that were less than above board,
Right.
Real quick, I want to tell you, I don't know if you know this or not, out in San Manuel, little mining town north of Tucson, they were talking about putting computer servers in the bottom of the mine.
Right.
And same with the Cleopatra mine up out of Prescott. Cottonwood rather, and they were talking about, because it's cooler underground, and they just blow air through one side of the tunnel, and they just blow the air through, and it cools it down naturally using the thermal mass of the earth.
Well, that kind of like how they cool swimming pools in a lot of places. You just run your piping underground a sufficient number of feet, and as the water flows through, it cools because the ground is cooler. That's why my dogs always dig holes, right?
Yeah, so they're talking about that for computers, but didn't Trump just dump $40 billion into Arizona for like a AI brain hub?
Yeah, I think so, and I think part of the plan is what you were just talking about, to use mines to do this, because, and that's why that's like Bitcoin storage, right?
Mm-hmm.
It requires all of these in the very hardworking and intensive servers that get hot, and so a lot of these Bitcoin mines are stored in mines or stored somewhere underground, where it's very easy to regulate the temperature, because like you said, you just filter air in, it flows out, and you're in an area that stays a relatively constant temperature regardless of what's happening outside. So,
and a lot of people don't know also, like, why would Phoenix grow so effing hot there? Well, number of reasons. We don't have any earthquakes, we don't have any tornadoes, we don't have any hurricanes, and our floods are relegated to the rivers and just a little property off the sides of them sometimes. Every once in a great while. Like, we don't really have floods in Arizona either. So there's not a lot of natural
gotta have something, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's about it. I mean, there's a 100-year flood, we call it here in Phoenix,
right.
But yeah, so I know things are changing, but I think Trump's got to have to get a hold of the tech. We know a lot of older people, older liberals in this town that we live in, and I'll tell you where I think the danger is: talking to people, just everyday people, about politics on a surface level. I don't go this deep with most people because they look at you like you got two heads. They don't even know the battleground. They don't understand. These older men that I talk to, I'm talking, like 80, 75, 80.
Right.
They don't understand that when they walk up and sit down at a coffee shop next to me, their phone registers that they're next to my phone, and those IP numbers exchange.
Right.
And that phone is aware of my phone here because of the I accept button that they hit and the I accept button that I hit. And that when they go to their other buddies that are all Democrats, there's a profile that's built on them continually. And because of their age and their demographic, there are companies that put this information together that sell it to the government and then sell it back to Zuckerberg and Bezos and everyone else. And the marketing companies feed them news in their Facebook and on the YouTube and on their news in general, and ads based upon their political affiliation and where they're at within their political affiliation based on their Gmail comments and their social media comments. And they are then nudged one direction or the other. They know what's going to infuriate them. I mean, literally, there's scientific breakdowns on everybody based on their metadata.
Right.
And I told this to a number of people, and they told me I was crazy. They told me I was a conspiracy theorist. Nothing like this could ever happen in America with the laws and privacy. And I said, dude, it's happening right now. Like, as we're speaking, do you understand? They don't even know it's happening, Brian.
Well, I mean, the privacy applies to the government, doesn't apply to private sector. And so
that's just it.
And
that's going to have to go away.
Yeah. So my son and I one time were talking about welding. And then in my Facebook feed, I got nothing but welding ads for like a month. And it's like, they're wasted on me because I'm not even sure I can spell welding, but they watch everything we do. And so,
but so there's a lot of work needs to be done. And I just hope, I got one more question for you before we call it a night here. Who do you think would be the best person to take over Trump's position as president of the United States after Trump is out?
That's the $1 million question. I mean, you have so many, phony wannabes that would be, I think fairly easy sellouts. How do you find a politician like Trump that's willing just to say, to hell with you. This is what I said I'm doing, and this is what I'm doing.
And to go through what he went through willingly.
Right. And so to find somebody that will come in and be the next Trump, that's going to be a tough one. I don't know. I can't put my finger on a single person. But you got a lot of people like that General Flynn guy that are trying to make themselves, posturing and my God,
My God is
I
right.
would urge Republicans to stay as far away from that as possible. But
Flynn is not your friend. He is the enemy.
how do we find the next Trump? And that's going to be, that's going to be the tough part about it. And so
I don't think we can. We're never going to find another Trump.
well,
But
and
it's
that's why we need to make as much progress in restructuring this federal system and getting the federal government under control as possible. But really quickly, before we go, I want to tell you about AI, because a lot of people need to be concerned about AI, right? Remember when we had, for example, in the automotive industry, we had all of these blue collar workers, right? And what happened to all these blue collar workers? Replaced.
Yeah. But with AI, they're gone.
Right. They automated the auto manufacturing lines, right?
Mm-hmm.
But with their development of all of this high tech AI, what's that going to do to white collar workers, right?
Well, you're going to need less humans.
Right.
You're just going to need less people. And what are they going to do? Where are they going to go? What happens
Right.
when people don't have a job to do? They can't afford to eat. Money has to be
Right.
from the welfare system to support them. What do they do?
Right.
You
Yeah,
have to get rid of them.
Yeah, that's what people really need to start thinking about now. What am I going to do? Because AI is coming for your job. They're coming for my job, right? Because
The birth rates are down right now.
yeah,
And the fertility rates are down right now.
well,
And
they're
the population
way
rates are down right now.
since
They're
COVID.
way down.
Right.
We are in decline as a species on the planet Earth as we speak.
Right. Yeah, and a lot of that was intentional as a result of the COVID vaccines.
Well, I've been telling people, and I'm usually ahead of these things when I can feel these things and articulate them out. Like
Mhm.
we went through the hunter-gatherer phase for 250,000 years or so, and then we got into the agricultural phase,
Right.
and then we were into, and that lasted about 6,000, or so, 10,000, and then we went into the Industrial Revolution in like 1880s, right, roughly.
Right.
Early 70s, and then we went into the computer tech in the 1950s.
Right.
3 years after Roswell, right? Right after Roswell crashed,
Yeah.
we start getting computer chips, and now we're into AI,
Right.
and our population went up and up and up and up and up, and then it planed off, and now we're going back down.
Yeah.
Almost like we're a commodity. Labor's a commodity. The species was used when they needed it in different phases of the evolution of our planet, and now they're thinning us back down again as we have these AI quantum computing infrastructure. Go ahead.
Right. So I don't know. People just need to watch out because, even lawyers, before long, AI is going to be able to draft a better brief than most lawyers.
Right. I have been playing with that. I know a lot of people that aren't hiring. They're going pro se and they're having Grok and
Right.
AI
Right.
thin it out, do this, do that,
Right.
tailor it for their own state. I'm editing a book right now.
It's
Do
funny.
you think I can
because-
find an editor that can do what AI can do for me for
Right.
free?
It's funny because you have people can now ask questions of Grok. Reporters are asking questions of Grok, and then they're submitting them, as a story, admitting that they're Grok, but
Yes.
Grok is actually writing these stories, and so it's quite interesting. But
And tailoring it for a specific group of people in a specific city
Yeah.
with that the education level and that specific vocabulary.
right. Well, what's your
Just
book
like
about?
that.
What's your book about?
Oh, my book's about Phoenix and the occultism that was baked into Phoenix and the symbols that's baked into it,
Right.
and some of the history as well. It's de-occulting. My name, the Phoenix Enigma, it was going to be the name of the book, the Phoenix Enigma. And it's about the enigma that is Phoenix during the underlying occultism
Right.
within the political and infrastructure of it.
Yeah. Well, I'm working on a book right now as well, and it's going to be called Arizona at Night, and it's a collection of my night photographs like the one you see behind me.
Yeah.
So that was taken out in Cabeza Prieta National Wildlife Sanctuary. Beautiful place.
Oh, I haven't made it down there yet. It was Edward Abbey's favorite place in the state.
As absolutely beautiful place. I was down there running a road that runs along the border through Cabeza Prieta, and then God, what's the desert? What's that cactus monument that's down there? Organ Pipe.
Organ pipe.
Yeah, and you come across these mountains that are white and then some are black, and it's just absolutely incredible. And I'm trying to get a book put together. So
Cool, man. I know we love the photo that you took of the eclipse.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
fun. Yeah, they won't be in the book though because it's all night photos and it's dedicated to the Southwest Arizona and some of the border communities. But yeah.
All right.
Well, thanks for
We'll wrap it up here.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Thanks for coming on. Tell people where they can find you and your show and when you broadcast.
I'm on Twitter, and We the People USA Alliance is also on Twitter. And we broadcast our podcast every Monday at 7. We weren't online tonight. A lot of our members are traveling for weddings and Mother's Day and whatnot. And so we'll be back up on Monday, 7 p.m. to talk about the national security state and what it's doing here in the state of Arizona through our local elected officials. So.
Nice. All right. If you got anything that breaks before that or you need to be back on the show, shoot me a call and we'll get you on.
Peace.
Thank you, brother.
See ya.
Yeah.
Take care. All right, man. That was